Today I want to talk to you about transition. There's been so many people that I've been speaking to. I was on a book signing last weekend, and I'm doing what I love. I get to do those soulful conversations, actually with complete strangers, and it's so beautiful how people are sharing. I just think we all need to share with each other, and there's not a lot of outlets to do that. So if I can be that outlet, I want to be that outlet. It's very meaningful to me. It's very purposeful to me. And beyond just me, I find that people are sharing. They want to share. They want to figure this stuff out. They're struggling. They're not pinpointing things. And, the transition stems from everything and anything to, from maybe relocating, getting ready to retire, or in retirement, empty nest, divorce, being in a career that you thought you loved, and now you're like, I don't think it's really me. I can't pinpoint it, but I'm not feeling the fulfillment I thought I would. I still feel there's emptiness inside of me, and I'm not sure what that is. So, yeah, it's a time for transition. And I think what makes this time in the history of our world so different than before is the outside world is even more furious in its chaos, its fear, its disruption. It's at a very heightened stance. So there's no reprieve anywhere, right? So if you're feeling that within you, and they're feeling, oh my God, I'm retired, I don't have the tools. Or, oh man, I thought I was gonna love this career and I just don't. Where are my tools? I'm going through a divorce, where are my tools? We don't have the tools, and we look outside, it's total chaos. So I could see where there's just like this clash of disruptive energy, and people are kind of like, what do I do? And then with this questioning that don't bring you to an answer or a solution, you take on this, I call it a malaise. It's what was happened to me in my life. There was like this undercurrent of anxiety. I couldn't pinpoint what it was. There was an underwhelmment of everything. Like nothing excited me. There was no joy. There was nothing to look forward to. And my life was gray. It's just a gray area. So this is what I want to talk about, because I want to talk about what happened with me, where I went, how I chose to be in the middle and move forward, and where I am today. So hopefully this video is going to help you if you're in some type of transition and you're seeking the tools, you don't have the tools, you need some answers. Hopefully my sharing ignites a different perspective, a question. It helps you start questioning something, or it helps see something within you, within your personality type, that ignites that soul that's in you, that ignites it, that gives it permission, allows it to start speaking to you, instead of you shutting it off and saying, I don't know what that is. That scares me. It shouldn't scare you. It's a part of you. And I think this is part of the tools that I want to share with you. My name is Nina Zapala. If you don't know me, this is a place I talk about spiritual personality typing. You're probably like, what the hell is that? It's something that an ENTP, no, it's really something I constructed for myself, because like I said, it wasn't out there when I was going through what I call my major life tsunami. My whole life broke apart. I mean, I'm telling you, it was divorce, it was career, it was relocation, it was everything. Everything fell apart. So speaking of disruption, I know it. I feel it. I know your desperation. I feel your longing just to grab onto something, right? You just feel like you're in this dark cave of something. So during this time of my tsunami, I was relying on teachings from, I had a mentor back in the day, Dr. June Lee Nix, who was a spiritual psychologist. We didn't call them that back in the day because it was back in the day, right? But she was a spiritual psychologist. She taught all the modalities of personality typing, the Enneagram. We did really cool thing, your spirit guide, Myers-Briggs, all this great stuff. But she was also heavily into psychology. And she got me very interested in this journey that I'm now on. And I want to thank her profusely for that, because she helped me start seeing some different perspectives. I got help. I want to help you do the same. So let's just, in brief, spiritual personality typing is personality typing with a spiritual understanding. So what does that mean? So I believe that you are a spirit being having a human experience. So you have a spirit and a human aspect to yourself. You have two sides to yourself, right? And they're supposed to work together, not dualistically. One side's not better, one side's not lesser than. They work together to bring about your true self, the most illuminated self you can be. And don't we all want that? Don't we want to all shine our light and bring that light to the world, our gifts to the world? And when we illuminate ourselves, we start illuminating other people. It's the nature of metaphysics. It's just how it works. Energy attracts like, right? So how this works is when you start getting in touch with that, you start realizing, okay, I'm more than just this human logical self. And this is the hard thing people can't pinpoint. And you start seeing that I am this spiritual being. I am that. There's a spiritualness within me. I call it the divine spark, divine intelligence. Some people call it the Holy Spirit. Some people call it the goddess within, the God within, whatever you want to call that. Doesn't matter what you call it. It's the life force. It's the universal life force that's pervasive, not only on this planet, but in the cosmos. It brings unlimited creativity, imagination, health, wealth. All of the goodness, the joys, the happiness, love. It brings that all into focus for you, right? So, but what you have to do is like, well, how do I tap into that, right? It's a big question, right? So how you tap into that is you have to start going within. Going within. I'm going to put a journal prompt in the description box so you guys can use this journal prompt. It's also in the book. I don't know if you've heard, I published a book. But this is a good place for you to start this journey. It's a 101. It's very basic, what I'm talking to here, because I wrote this book during my tsunami. So there's a lot of the sentiments and a lot of the realizations that were happening. I wrote them down, I journaled them, and I just put them in the book so I wouldn't forget, because this is what I want to teach. It's really important to me. Or you can go on the blog. My blog is another place of great free information. The book's like, what, 20 bucks, 25 bucks? It's no big deal. So, but when you're going back to that, like, how do you harvest it? How do you get in there? Well, you have to start, like I said, I'm going to put a practice in that shows you how to do this. But first of all, you have to realize that you have that aspect of you. And when you start tapping into that, and how you do this, you get quiet with yourself. You get into stillness. You get into meditation. You give yourself time to think, instead of being on this hamster wheel of the external world, who doesn't want you to think. It wants to keep you crazy in the institutions, into the consumption, into debt, into spending, into drinking, into whatever it is. That's a different way of living. I don't live like that anymore. I'm totally blessed, because I woke up and I said, no, I can't do that anymore. It's ruining me. So how this works is like, so when you start getting into this spirit place of you, the Holy Spirit, that spiritual intelligence, the life force that's within you, it starts calming down the ego. It's like, allow me to lead your life. Allow me to inspire you. Allow me to lead you. Allow me in. Allow me to have a voice. And when you start doing that, what's really cool about this is that inner guide, that divine intelligence within you, the Holy Spirit, it has the capacity to reach up into divine intelligence, because it's on a higher consciousness level. So these guys can communicate a lot easier, because they're on a closer energy frequency than we are from a logical human perspective. So what gets exciting is you start opening that up. You'll start seeing answers are going to start flowing, serendipitous moments. surprises. Things just come about. You're like, I don't know how that happened. This is fabulous, right? So when you start listening, what happens is that inner guide, the Holy Spirit, communicates, lowers its frequency, and starts communicating to your logical self. And it shows the logical self how to take the inspired right actions. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. I still mess up. I still sometimes hear the messages wrong. I'm like, oh, this is what it's saying, do this. And no, that's not what it said. And I make a mistake, I fail. But through those failures, I get experience, right? So I get new experiences. And every time you fail, that's a new experience. That's a wisdom that you gain. A wisdom that you now can look back on like a file. Think of it as a file. It's in your brain. You can file it away and go, oh yeah, remember when I did that and I screwed that up and I did it this way? I don't want to screw it up this time, so I'm going to do it differently this time. I'm going to rely on what I learned and apply that to the situation and see how that goes. And it might go a little bit better and you might learn another thing, so you apply that. You keep on applying. Life is one grand experience of knowing yourself, of knowing your true self, your authentic self, your meaningful self, your purpose-filled self. That's what the true self is. It's all of those beautiful things. The joy-filled self, the happy self, the compassionate self, the self that wants to live in servitude, You know, I think it's the Happiness Journal. They even reported there's a direct link of happiness with somebody that's on purpose and has a purpose than those that aren't. There's a direct correlation to it. So there's been studies on this. So I'm just not talking out of my whatever. I don't want to say, I can be kind of I don't know, we'll just skip that whole thing. But I'm saying this because I know it's, first of all, it's what I experienced. It's what I researched, and it's what happens in my life on a daily basis. So it's kind of like spiritual personality typing in a nutshell. And I'm telling you, if you're interested in that, this is a new way to think. It's a contemporary look at Myers-Briggs from the 1940s. Because what I do is I get into not only the traditional aspects, but the spiritual aspects of your personality type. And how when you work those together, because remember, you're logical and spiritual, you have logical mind and spirit mind. When you put those together, now you're on that elevated path, that illuminated path, right? It's not that you're not going to have a hard time, because you will. It's just what life is, because you're always here to learn. But it's an easier road than staying in this place of not knowing how to pinpoint why things keep on coming about. Why do you keep on sabotaging yourself? Why do you keep on choosing the same people? Why do you keep on choosing the same job with the same results over and over and over? I didn't want to live like that anymore, and that's exactly what I was doing. So let's start back to that. Let's take back that, because I'm here to teach you what happened in my life. I was in the travel career, great career. It's lovely. I mean, I was at luxury end travel, so $20,000 a night villas. I was representing, so I got to stay there and experience it, because how could I write about it if I couldn't experience it, right? I was sitting, hanging out with, Michelin star chefs, doing all the stuff that says you've arrived, you're successful. And I was like, it was fun for a while, until the dream became not so dreamy, kind of turned into a nightmare. When you take a flight from Florida into London in a round trip, like it just a day trip, that's not normal. That is not normal. Working in excess of 80 hours a week, that's not normal. It's not even healthy, And I was trying to raise a kid during that time, having my career, and trying to have some self-time for me. All of it was out of balance. All of it was out of whack. So, of course, I was feeling like, I can't do this anymore. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I began feeling that more and more and more. I was like, something's got to give, man. And I was in New York City. I was on stage. I was winning what they call Platinum Award. And it's only three of those awards get presented each year on a global basis. So I was feeling pretty damn good about myself, right? I just worked my ass off, another, 100-hour week, back to back, to make all this happen, make the reporter, all the journalists show up, all the photographers. You have to script all this stuff. It just isn't like, oh, look, I got this thing. It's like a lot of work goes into PR. So if you do have a PR agency, know that they do a lot of work. But most of them do. But so I was on stage getting this award, and this thought came into me, and it was just like, it was my soul self. And I didn't really realize what it was at the time. It was like, are you happy? And I quickly said no. I mean, I didn't even hesitate. I was like, no. Okay. So I answered that question. I opened the door for the universe to step in and say, okay, let's make you happy. How can we be happy? So it was my life actually started changing as soon as I made that choice. As soon as I said no. My life really started changing at that point. The mind shift I kind of shifted my mind. My mind shifted. A new perspective started to arise. So as soon as I said no, I started looking at, well, why doesn't this make me happy? So instead of going, oh God, I'm working so hard, doing all this external looking, I went internal. I was like, what's not making me happy? And I started realizing that I was getting sick. Why was I getting sick? I was getting sick because I wasn't taking care of myself. I was working too much, to what end? And honestly, the external world never, ever stops wanting from you. And it's very unhealthy. It's just very unhealthy. The wanting never stops. You can't live a life, your whole life, just on a constant wanting wheel. That's not healthy. And it's very imbalanced. So that whole thing got started. So I went down the road and I said, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to stay with what you're doing? Well, I'm successful. I'm winning awards. I'm hobnobbing with cool people, celebrity here and there, drinking the best wine, eating great food, traveling all over. Yeah. Right? Like, okay, well, what's not to love, right? But inside I wasn't happy. And I was getting sick. I was missing my son. My marriage was a shit show. So it just like everything was not it just wasn't working. So sometimes the easier part is to know, like, no, I don't want this. And then what gets harder is like, well, what do you really want? Because that's the time, like that, like almost like that middle zone, right? Where you have to start sitting with yourself and questioning everything. And a really good place to start is, what are your values? What are your beliefs? And how do they align with what you really want in life? And I'm not talking your parents' values or your friends' values or your partner's values. Their values I'm talking about your values. What's true to you? And this takes a lot of soul searching. And it's not easy because it's like peeling the onion. You go through one, you're like, oh my God, I didn't think of that. And then, oh my God, you peel the onion some more. You keep on peeling and peeling and peeling. And the onion never gets really unpeeled in this life, I don't think. Because we're here to evolve, so you need to keep on evolving. The good news is, it gets easier. You stop the crying when you're peeling the onion, right? You're like, oh, nope, I can do this. It gets easier. But you got to go through that middle area that's very gray, that's very dark, because you don't know. Like, you're stepping into something you don't know. Or you do know, is what I've learned. But you have to peel it back. That's what I'm saying. Peel that onion back. It's like somebody saying, oh yeah, go ride your bike, and your bike's sitting in front of the house. It's all in pieces. Well, how the hell can I ride this? Well, you can't. It's all in pieces. Until you put the bike all back together, so all the pieces fit perfectly, you can't ride the bike. So just like you can't know who you are and all this stuff and where you want to go until you put all the pieces of you back together and identify them. And a lot of people are going to want to jump in, and I did this. I know. I went to see a psychologist, and I talked to different people, and I got absurd, advice like, well, if you and your husband, aren't really happy sexually, whatever, go home and have sex. I'm like, what the hell? Like, no, this is, you didn't hear a word I said. And I'm not blaming them. I'm not blaming anybody in that regard, because guess what? It all comes down to me. And I highly recommend that when you're in that middle part, you don't listen to anybody. You don't go to a guru. You don't go to a master class. You start getting into yourself and knowing and defining what it is you truly want. You have to go through this stuff, because if you start listening to somebody else's narrative without doing all the work, you don't become whole. Because if you listen to somebody else's narrative, you start taking on their narrative, because it's easier to do, right? It's easier to take on somebody else's narrative. You don't have to do the work. I'll just do it that way. But trust me, I did that several times. And each time, I sank deeper and deeper into this chasm of darkness, because I wasn't being true to myself. I was like, I'll just do it that way. It's easier. I'll just be that. What the hell? What is that? That's somebody else's narrative. So then what you're really doing is you're saying to yourself, okay, it's okay if you live somebody else's narrative. Well, that's not going to make you happy or fulfilled or bring meaning to your life. You're living somebody else's life, not your own life. So that malaise that you have, that underlying anxiety, start looking to see where you're doing that in your life, because I'll be damned if you're not doing that. Because that's what I was doing. I'm like, oh my God, no wonder I can't pinpoint this about myself, because it's not about myself. I'm letting myself be led by somebody else instead of being led by that beautiful spirit guide that knows exactly why you're here. It knows your purpose. It knows what meaning you want in your life. It knows how to fulfill all that. It knows the right road to take. It knows how to attract the people in your life that you need. It knows where you want to live. It knows all of the stuff before you even know it. That's why you have to trust it. So, we're not taught this. We're taught to look outside, do what society tells you. It's not the way. It's just not the way. And I don't think what I'm telling you in this day and age is unconventional. I think spiritual personality typing in this day and age is a very contemporary outlook, a very contemporary perspective, because the world is changing so fast. If you're not changing with it, you're going to go down with it. And I don't mean that to scare anybody at all. But I don't want you to go down that road like me and go so far down. You go, damn it, I did it again. I'm so far down the road. Now I got to truck all the way back. Instead of, no, I can just turn around. I can go through the turnstile. Instead of going, oh my God, 15 floors later, I go up the 15 floors. And I get down the 15 floors. Then I get to go through the turnstile. Do you see what I'm saying? The message is not to evoke fear. It's to evoke inspiration and help you see new perspectives. So the most important part of this is you really need to sit in that middle part. Because at the beginning, you kind of know. You're like, no, I don't want this. And what do I want? I don't know. A lot of people go, I don't know what I want. And that's fine too. But I tell you, when you start going inside, it'll tell you what you want. But you have to listen. And you have to be committed. It's not going to happen in a day. Look at me. It took 2 or 3 years to figure this stuff out. But the thing was, I was going towards it, not staying put or going away from it. There's a big difference. Step by step by step. And honestly, when you start taking the steps, and small steps are great. It's not some gigantic thing like, oh, I've arrived. That's not how it works. No. That's what the entertainment Hollywood will tell you. That's not how it works at all. It works in small steps because you're learning aspects of yourself. So you need to integrate that in and then take another step, then integrate that in. I know, it sounds like a long, arduous journey, and it is. This isn't easy stuff. This is hard stuff. But once you start getting there, even taking the small steps, you already start feeling better. So yeah, the journey is hard, but the journey is more joyous than staying in a journey where you're unhealthy and overwhelmed every single day. This journey might be harder, but you have more joy about it because you have purpose. You don't have to know exactly everything. You're never going to know exactly everything. Trust me, I thought I have to know everything. I'm an ENTP, so, I got to think, I got to know. And I think a lot of people do that, and especially people I was talking to. A lot of people, they wanted to know. I'm retiring, but I don't know. Well, good. How could you know? You've been in a career for 30, 40, 50 years. And you've done it day in and day out, day in and day out. You're not going to like go, okay, I'm retired now, put the retirement hat and go, well, I know exactly what I want to do. How the hell could you even know that? That's not realistic. Either is divorce, all the things that we go through. It's not realistic to turn the corner and go, oh, I got this. Do you? And if you think you do, I caution you to really look hard that you're not pulling a Nina and saying, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to borrow this page from this person's notebook. It's just going to be easier. It's not easier. It takes you longer. Again, you got to go up the 15 flights. Then you got to get up there. You're at the top and going, oh, this was the wrong way to go. Down the 15 flights. All the way through the lobby. Then you start going through the turnstile wheel, right? Get you a little bit closer and go. It's just what happens, you know? And I don't want to make this a big, like, oh God, dread and no. Because once you start on that journey, you get excited about yourself. You're like, yeah, I'm accomplishing things. They're little small steps, but so what? You're accomplishing something for you to make you a better person. So you feel better. You're more in joy. The closer you get with identifying who you are and what you want out of life, your joy barometer goes up. Your happiness barometer goes up. It's a fact. It's just a fact. It's a fact. So once you start getting through this middle part, and it could take you, I don't know how far down. I don't know how many flights up you are. I was up a lot. I was probably at the 30th floor because I just wouldn't listen. I was stubborn as hell. I'm still stubborn. I'm an ENTP. But you got to start listening. And what's cool about this is if you start looking into your personality type, which was such a great tool for me, the traits are going to kind of show you where you're stuck. They show you where you're out of balance. So you do have a tool. You have your personality, your Myers-Briggs personality type. It's a great little tool. It shows you, ooh, I'm so dominant in this, I'm doing this, and I'm going too far this way, I'm so out of balance. That's why I can't think. That's why I'm not doing this, because I'm thinking too far this way. I'm not bringing myself back into a more balanced state. And it's all of the traits in your functional stack. All of the traits in your functional stack. Let me repeat that. It's all of the traits in your functional stack. You have to know them all. Divine intelligence doesn't make mistake. When these things were developed, they were developed to help us here on the planet. It was somebody, that was their soul purpose. That was their soul path. That was gifted to them by divine intelligence. So divine intelligence doesn't make mistakes. It's not random. You don't just show up on earth and go, oh yeah, let me pick a personality type out now. No, your soul needs that personality type and those beautiful traits that you have to complete its soul mission here on earth. It has to use your traits. So do you know your traits? They're sacred to you because they're sacred to your soul purpose. It's not only knowing your traits in a very superficial manner. How do they all interact together? How do they all work together? That's another interesting thing. And again, it's in the book. I talk a lot about this in the book. I go through it all because that's what I was like, okay, so I know my traits from a very, surface level philosophy. But to go deep into that, like, well, how do they work together? Like in what's called a functional stack, and if you're familiar with Myers-Briggs, it's just the order in which you use your traits. So in that functional stack, I know that I have 4 traits, but how do they all work? How do they all combine? Does one enhance another? Does one lead? Does one cause me more grief and bring me more challenges, which ultimately brings you more personal growth, right? And that's why they don't teach that in Myers-Briggs. I want to teach about the personal growth, spiritual aspects of personality typing, because if you start seeing challenges like, oh, I got to work through it, I got to power through it, which you do, but you also have to look at them from a spiritual perspective, the long term, not just a short term game that the external world teaches you how to process this stuff. It's the long term gain, the wisdom that you gain, knowing these traits in a very intimate manner. I know I'm hearing now, like my inferior trait, or what I call from a spiritual perspective, my opposing trait, is introverted sensing. My dominant trait, I hate that word, so I call it my primary or my North Star trait, is extroverted intuition. Total opposite ends of how you gather information. Totally opposite. But once I understand how they work, I can bring them together. Not only recognizing when I'm getting too far out here, that I need this trait to bring some bound, to ground me. It needs to, because this is sensing. It's a sensing trait. This is an intuitive trait. So the sensing trait needs to ground that extroverted intuition. And it's also brought me a love of antiquing and estate sailing. There's nothing better that I love when I'm traveling is to go into an estate sale or an antique place. Oh my God, it's like, let's go do that. People are like, you're so weird. I'm like, I know. But I love doing that. And it's obviously, there's so many other things I can't get into right now. But if you want, you can book a one-on-one session. I do clarity calls around your personality type because so many of the online tests are inaccurate. I mean, I was going through my certification. I was actually in class. And like halfway through the class, you got to take a test again. And my test came out the exact opposite. And I went up to the professor and I said, what is this? He goes, oh, just ignore that. That's totally wrong. That's not you. You're an ENTP. I'm like, yeah, I know that. But, you know, because Dr. Julie Nix had also confirmed that all those many years ago. But so I had the tools. I kind of knew. A lot of people don't know. And they'll come to me and they're like, I'm this. I'm like, you know, and I'm going to talk about this too in a little bit more detail. I have a new blog coming out on Wednesday. But if you're uncertain, if you're taking a test, you're like, yeah, I don't feel like this is me. It could be that the test is wrong, or it could be when you're taking the test, you want to be that other person. You want to look at like, no, I don't really do that. We all do that. It's human nature, you know. But then that skews the test. Then you skew the results, and the results aren't correct. And then you think you're this personality type when you're really not. And then that really messes with your head. It causes a lot of confusion, a lot of anxiety. You have performance issues. Like, I can never measure up. So I know, because you're measuring up from a state that's not, it's a false state, false sense of self. You're never going to measure up in that state. So does that make sense? So clarity calls are really important. If you just get on my calendar schedule, it's all on my website. But, you know, you have to know all that stuff. You really have to know that. And so how many of you know your traits? Because your soul depends on your traits. And what's the relationship with your traits? How do they all work together? How can I elevate them into to the best they can be, so then when that higher consciousness comes in, you're rolling. You're like, nope, I got this. I'm going to go take inspired action. I'm going to go do this at a higher level of consciousness than you would before. Right? Because everything's not broken. Because the bike's not sitting there in pieces now. The bike's together. You might have to have training wheels on, but who cares? You're still going. You're still moving. Right? And when you get this, that inner spark, that divine inner spark, the goddess, your inner guide, your spirit guide, the Holy Spirit, you get all that in sync with the logical mind. I like to call that your sacred personality type. You're unstoppable. Because you're there. You're heading towards your purpose, your passion. You know what your gifts are. You do not get manipulated by the outside world. You don't. You don't compare yourself. You don't try to compete. Because how can somebody compete against you when you're the only person like you on the planet? How can there be competition? There can't be. I know this sounds like really like, oh yeah, whatever, everybody. And they do compete because they're sitting there from the external world. But if you start taking what's natural and that spirit comes in and starts doing the supernatural, you'll see. I have little experiences with that every day in my life. It's the truth, right? And this is on the other side of that place where you're in contemplation and reflection and really drilling down to get to know yourself. All right, so you get to the other side, you start functioning. You're the bike's together. You have training wheels on, but you're going. You're moving yourself forward because now you know. You know from a place of values. You know from a place of beliefs. You know from a place of your personality traits that are sacred, that are on track and you're understanding them better. Are you going to understand them all at once? No. But you have a much more deeper understanding than just a superficial look. Oh, like I'm an extrovert. What the hell does that even mean? You know, people go, I'm an extrovert. I'm like, so what? What does that mean? An extrovert or what? What's your traits? I know, I'm an ENTP. I can get bitchy about this stuff because I'm like, no. You have to know yourself. Well, I want you to know yourself because I want you to be happy. I want you to bring your joy and your light to the world. We need that right now. You know, there's not a personality type out there that every personality type is super fascinating. And so much to bring to the world. And in such different ways. It's just so cool. You know? It's just so cool. So I hope this helps you understand yourself from a different perspective. Hopes this gives you a broader perspective of how to think about yourself and how to think when you're going into a transition. So you don't think just from this logical self. You have to think, I have another tool in there. I have the spirit guide in me that can help me. It can illuminate a light that I've never known before. It can help bring me out of darkness and illuminate the light on that shadow aspect of myself that I haven't dealt with, that I need to deal with, if you choose to. You can also, like what I did at the beginning, you can also, like when I said no, then I just stayed. Like I stayed in this center. I said, I'm fine. I'm just going to stay here. I'll figure it out, you know, because I didn't want to look at myself. So I stayed there for a couple of years. You can do that too. There's no judgment, you know. So finally, spirit, my soul was saying, smack me up in the head and goes, you need to go. This is ridiculous. We're going. It's like kicking me along. It got brutal, man. It just brought like more shit into my life until I just said, okay. Oh my gosh, stop with all the disruption. Just stop. But that's me. You're going to be different. We all handle things very differently. There's no right or wrong way. It's just your way. I want you to learn your way so you don't rely on their way. You need to rely on your way. Your way is the path to your truth, to your true self, to enlightenment, to bring your beautiful gifts to the world. You just don't bring your gifts. You are the gift. You show up as the gift. I mean, think about that. You show up as the gift because you're here to gift other people. So, I hope this all made sense to you. If you have a question, drop it in the comment section below. If you like this video, please share, please subscribe. And if you know of somebody that you think could hear this message, please share it with them. That's what I'm here for. I love doing this. I'm not going to stop. I don't care if I just reach 2 people. I don't care. Because I said this in my last video, and this is what you should think about too, because we live in a world like, I need 10 million followers. I need this, and this. And okay, that's cool. Whatever. I don't care about that. But this is what I know. If I help one person, right? And then that person goes on to change the world somehow, I'm involved in that. I'm involved in that whole energy path. Do you know how good that makes you feel? So it's not about, if you can help 10 million people, go for it. Do it. You know? Bravo. But I don't want to be in a place where I'm going to put that on myself, right? I think one person at a time, helping one person at a time, one person at a time. And that's why I do these videos, because hopefully I helped you. I don't care about the 10 million other people. I care about you. Because you're important to me. Because I know you have greater things to do. And when you do great things, I'm in your energy stream. I'm like, yeah, this is so cool. Look what they're doing now. They went from here to here to here to boom. Rocket. Just rocket. Right? And it's so cool. So that's kind of my philosophy. It's where I am right now. And it's going to change because I'm ever changing. Always. But guys, enough said. Happy June. Woohoo. June 1st. Wow. Anyway, enjoy this month. I'm gonna be doing some other shorts, and I might even do a long form video. I don't know if I'll do that on my blog. Very interesting. I still get into the traits and so forth, so we'll see. I like shooting videos. I'm an ENTP, so you can tell I don't edit shit. I just go do my thing. Go. If you guys like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Hey, I'm just being real, man. Real. Again, you want to start your learning journey quickly? Get the book. It's on Amazon. Unpack Your Personality, Let Your Inner Guide Be Your Travel Guide. Go visit the blog, ninazapala.com/blog. You know, get into one of my sessions. Lots of ways to work with me, okay? Anyhow, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being part of this community. It's really important to me. You are important to me. You're very important to me. I want to see you skyrocket. I do. I can't wait to see what you're going to do because I get to be a part of it. So it's more joy and fun for me. Is that selfish? I don't know. I think when we all start thinking like that, we all bring each other along, we can be like one big happy family. That's the way I'm looking at it. My perspective. Over and out. Nina Zapala, take care of you.